Hello, Culture Matters podcast. I'm so excited to introduce you to our guest. Before I do that, here's a quote I picked just for this episode. An investment operation is one which, upon thorough analysis, promises safety of principal and an adequate return. Operations not meeting these requirements are speculative. Benjamin Graham. My good friend Max Finn is on today. I'm so excited about this. I mean, how to put it in short. First of all, I had the pleasure of meeting Max on stage years ago through a mutual friend, Jeremy Haynes. Shout out to Jeremy. And I never forget my fiance now, but then I guess my first love was like, you got to listen to this guy, Max. She knew about him, our guest, and was like, oh, I was like, okay. And the fact that we're here today, unbelievably brilliant, compelling, the level of certainty and confidence. It was in preparation. I realized, like, wow, Max not only excelled in the academic space, but also comes from a family of entrepreneurs, started a startup Loot in college that got venture capital, ended up selling a business to ClickFunnels. If you don't know anything about them, they're everywhere. And if you don't even know them, you've seen them. And just so happens to be in business with one of my best friends, Jeremy Adams. I think we share that as well. And if you need to know anything about TikTok, he's your guy. I mean, I could go on for 45 more minutes of all the things that thousands of people are marketing. But like, man, I'm glad that we're friends. Like, and I feel like I need to be. I haven't done a good enough job getting to know you, which I have a bit of regret around that. It's like, I'm not sure why, really, right? When you become friends with somebody just because you're friends with somebody they're friends with. So here we are. I'm trying to break that, and I guess live. So thanks for coming on the show.
Of course, man. I was going to let you roll. You were just doing a great job. You're building me up. So you can spend the next 40 minutes.
I have a couple more things I could say. I mean, I know there were some
I'm
public companies you guys did marketing with.
I'm busting
just
your
very
balls.
Impressive.
I appreciate it, man. And I agree. It's a weakness of mine is that I'm super fortunate to have these like amazing connections with people, like really, really brilliant, successful people. And I don't do a good enough job of outreach. One, because I'm just people might be surprised about this, but I'm naturally more of an introverted person, extrovert, which is weird because people on the digital world see me speaking at events and stuff like that. But like, if I didn't do that as a career, I'd probably just be home. My wife has to like get me out of the house. Like she's the one that plans all the dates with friends and stuff. And I always regret it. Like, I don't want to go. None of we go. It's like, we have a great time. So yeah, I mean, I don't put enough effort into it, but when I do those things, like I'm sure when we chat today, like I have a blast. So it's just the feeling is mutual there that it's something I can work on and definitely need to build a deeper relationship beyond just us seeing each other business.
Part of like your genius though, in a sense too, like my assumption is that you have the ability to focus in on something and just completely laser down on it. Is that an accurate guess?
Yeah, I would say probably the reason why that's the case where I don't outreach is not really my strength and I don't go out and stuff is because I'm very pragmatic in the sense that like if I don't see a clear utility or purpose or reason of doing this, I don't do it. Almost even in like both professionally and personally, it's hard for me to split the divide there between those two things. So it's like I view it as, all right, working really hard all week. I want to be able to brainstorm on stuff today, but now we have plans going out to do something that's like it's just going to like, I'm not going to really enjoy it that much. So it's a waste of time. Like, that's why I'm thinking it playing in my head. But then I get out and I'm like, this is like, I'm so glad we did this. Cause it's ironically the best ideas that I have. And I think this is true for most people, just because of how the brain works, are when they're actively not working or thinking about trying to come up with ideas. It's like the catch-22 of coming up with great ideas and like brilliance, right? It's like that brilliant idea you have usually doesn't come from being in the office, actively trying to think of a brilliant idea, right? It's usually when you're waking up, going to sleep, in the shower, working out, because what's happening then, right? Your brain is kind of free to wander. It's free to play. It's free to make connections on different memories and things you've thought about. But when you're actively thinking about things, you're in that part of your brain that's task. right? It becomes this kind of rinse and repeat. Okay, I'm actually working. I'm doing X. I'm buying ads. I'm preparing a talk, whatever it is. And so it's using a different part of your brain. Whereas when you're just doing something, you're not really thinking, you can make this association. So ironically, it's like my best ideas come from when I'm actively working, but I want to actively work because I think that's when I'm going to be successful. So it's something I need to work on, is like more free time, less structured work, more independent thought. But yeah, it's definitely a challenge.
Would you consider yourself someone with a high level of work ethic? And yeah, I'm curious about that.
If you ask my wife, she would say yes, too much, too much work. Even my son now, Quinn, he's like, now he knows how to say, put my phone away. So he'll tell me to put the phone away, which is hilarious and also heartbreaking, because like I catch myself, I'm like, I shouldn't even be on my phone. Like my son has to tell me this. But yeah, I would definitely consider myself someone who's like really, really high work ethic, probably works too much and doesn't know how to turn it off, which is definitely a problem.
Someone listening to this that thinks they work hard, how can we give them the awareness that maybe they don't work as hard as they need to?
I don't even know if I want to answer that, because I'm going to answer, but like part of me,
I love it.
part of me, the reason I am saying that is because I think there's a misconception that's popularized online by guys like Gary Vee and Grant Cardone, which I love. I think they're great. I've never met Gary. I've met Grant a few times. I know Jared to see, like, amazing, brilliant. But I think the constant thing, like the work attitude, I think gets new entrepreneurs, people into the space, to correlate the amount of work with success. They correlate those two things. The more I work, the more I'm going to be successful. And maybe early on it's true, but as you develop skills and relationships and build a network and stuff, it's more about the quality of work and the effectiveness of the time you're putting in that leads to success, not volume. Like even with our team, and I'll get back to the answer here, but like even with our team, we have most of our teams remote on all our companies. I don't really care if they work 9 to 5. I mean, we have structure. You need to give people structure, especially employees, but like I care about output, right? I'd rather have somebody on the team that works 4 hours a day, but like gets a lot of stuff done, does a great job, than somebody that works 10 hours, 12 hours a day, but just like is slacking off and not doing a great job. So yeah, for your question about like, how does somebody, I guess, is it know if they're not working hard enough? Is that kind of the question? Like, how do they identify whether they're working?
If I'm talking to someone like yourself that is a high performer, there may be many who think they are, then they're not. And maybe they're in that season where it's really that season where they need to be.
Yeah. I think it's, I guess I would put it this way. If you're not, at least if you're an entrepreneur, let's put in that bucket, right? Because if you're a 9 to 5 employee, it doesn't really matter. It's your working work hours. I would say if you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, and you're not at least working, work hours, like you're probably not working hard enough, right? Early on as an entrepreneur, you're going to be working late nights. You're going to be working weekends. And I think the more important thing is not so much like, are you actively sitting at a desk, forcing yourself to work 24 hours a day, but more so like, is the business and ideas, are they on your mind outside of work hours? Because that's where like a lot of the breakthroughs happen. And I think that separates a lot of people that are going to be successful versus not successful, not so much because they're working the extra hours, but because it shows that they're invested in the business. And usually they love what they do. If you don't love what you do and you're not like really enjoying and passionate about it, you're probably not gonna be able to keep that up and like work weekends and be thinking about the business all the time, because you just don't enjoy it. And it's really, people say like, well, you need to love what you do to be successful. I don't think it's necessarily like, it's not the case, because like the more passion you have, the better you're going to be. I think it's more so just because if you don't love what you do, the chances of you sticking with it are slim. So you eventually just give up or slack off, and then you're not successful. So I think it's definitely a true thing. It's like, if you're not working off after hours, if you're not putting the extra hours in, if you're not thinking about the business beyond 9 to 5, if you're thinking about like, oh, it's Friday, I'm pumped, like I can't wait the weekend, probably not the right field for you to be a business owner in this space.
For those that are not yet familiar with you somehow, layperson, what exactly is your expertise and the field, the body of work? Like,
Yeah, I
what's the
mean,
value proposition, right? What's the deliverable?
yeah. So most people, when if they know me, it's like for a specific channel, right? So as initially it was a Facebook ad guy, now it's a TikTok ad guy. But the
Hmm.
reality is like the only reason that's the case is because I'm really passionate about marketing and scaling businesses. And it's exponentially easier to grow and scale businesses if you're early to something, whether that's a new ad channel or whether that's a strategy. You know, one of my mentors and friends, Rich Sheffrin, probably one of the smartest human beings I've ever spent time with. Just,
Wow.
just brilliant. And he told me, he said, you know, I've asked some of all the big, he mentored like Dice and Brunson and all those guys. And he's like, I've asked them like, where was like your biggest break? Even back through your career, like where were your biggest successes? Where were the periods throughout your career where you made most of your money, where you achieved this massive kind of exponential increase in success, brand recognition, whatever it is. And all of them kind of trace it back to a few moments where they were first to a strategy, an ad channel. They were early to something. So whether it was the auto webinar, the first people to do that, the VSL, whether it was the, you know, book a call funnel, whether it was Facebook ads, Google ads, SEO, right? The people that are early to that, first to that, have a huge advantage and they make a lot of money, a lot of success very quickly. And so for me, it's like people know me for TikTok or Facebook, but really like I could care less about the ad channel. And I've the last few months, especially, I've tried to make this very clear with the content I put out there. I care more about the underlying mechanics of marketing, meaning like, why do people buy things? Right. So understanding things like behavioral economics and neuroscience and consumer psychology, those are things that like I'm really passionate about. Those are the books that I read. That's what I nerd out on. Because it is like, if you can understand those things, it's almost unfair because most people think that they're in complete control. The average person thinks when they go to the mall,
Hmm.
right? They go to the supermarket, that they're in complete control, that they're going to the supermarket and they're going to walk out with exactly what they went in to get, nothing more, nothing less. And the reality is, there are all these little things that businesses do, marketers do, that most people are not even aware of because it's subconscious, right? Like, forget the stat. It's a crazy stat, though. It's like, I want to say it's either 4 million or 4 billion basically pieces of data that your brain's being hit with constantly. I think it's every minute, every second. I get Google it. It's a stat there, but it's something like it's, you know, 11,000 or 11 million based on whether it was a million or a billion of the 40 you're
Mm.
actually perceiving. So it's let's just put it this way. A tiny, tiny fraction of the sensory data you're being hit with, meaning like right now you and I are talking, right? As we're talking, my eye sees lots of other things in my periphery. I see this water bottle. I see this little sculpture over here. I see all this stuff. I'm hearing things. I'm hearing the humming. I'm smelling things. I'm sensing things. Right. Most of that is being done completely unconsciously. I'm not aware of it. So the conscious part is me just focused right on you. But everything else, it's still coming in. It's being interpreted unconsciously though, right? But it still has an impact on my brain. It can still cause me to make decisions, not make decisions. Crazy example. It's like, you know, the reason why supermarkets, and I love this stuff. Just I love nerding out on this. Like maybe you know, so like
Oh no,
we can
this
move
is
off the topic,
beautiful.
right?
Now,
Like
let's stay here for about 45 minutes. I want to ask you about Daniel Kahneman. Like, if you're
I
in
love Kahneman. Kahneman,
Tversky
yeah.
and all them,
Thinking
I got
Fast and Slow is
it
one of the
out there.
best.
I got to show you
Yeah,
the library after this. It's
I
about
love it. So yeah, I would say also, by the way, if you're listening to this and you're interested in anything that I just said, and I'm going to say,
yeah.
Daniel Kahneman is probably the go. He's one of the greatest in the world. Thinking Fast and Slow,
I don't know if you
Type
can
One,
see.
Type
These
Two.
are the
Yeah,
neuroscience books up
yeah,
here in this section. Sorry.
yeah. So Tversky, Kahneman, go read all their stuff. They're Richard Thaler. There's a lot of great people, but so like little things like, and you're not aware of it. So you go to the supermarket, right? People always wonder like, why does the supermarket play such boring, slow music? Well, the reason they play boring, slow music is because it's actually playing at a beat that's less than your heart rate. What does that do? What actually, you're not aware of it, but it actually causes you to slow down. So you walk slower, you move slower. What happens when you walk, move slower? You spend more time somewhere. When you spend more time somewhere, you're more likely to buy stuff, right? The reason they don't play fast, upbeat music is because you move faster and they don't want you going through the store really fast, right? There's so many little things. You go to a wine shop, right? I don't think Kahneman did this experiment. I forget who did it, but like they went to this really fancy wine store for a week, these psychologists, and they would play different countries' music every day. So they play French music, Italian music, Spanish music. And what they noticed is on the days they played French music, sales of French wine increased. Next day, they played Italian music. Italian wine increased. And when they asked people, why did you buy the Italian wine? Almost nobody said because I heard Italian music. They made up some other reason. So the point of all this is like,
Interesting.
if you can understand this stuff, right? It gives you such an advantage. And it doesn't matter whether you're running Facebook ads or TikTok ads, or whether you're running a VSL funnel, a webinar funnel. Like, this is the stuff that matters. And so that's what, like, I consider myself passionate about and an expert at. Like, that's what I focus on. The tactical stuff, the TikTok, Facebook, YouTube,
Okay,
whatever it
question
is.
for you then.
Yeah.
Is people at some level, are people's decision-making abilities, the proportion of their decision-making abilities that is tied to above awareness frameworks, is that depends on their own self-awareness, wherever that is on a gradient. So the idea of marketing is helping people make decisions.
Yes.
Like, am I on what you're kind of?
You are. It's actually great. So there's a book I'm reading right now called The Illusion of Choice. It's a great book.
Ooh,
and
who's the author of that? That sounds great.
It's
If you don't know, I'll just write it
you
down.
I have, it's literally, I was listening on Audible.
This needs to be like a library call to action for everybody, like at least 10, 20 book recommendations.
So it's Richard Shotton. So Shotton. So The Illusion of Choice. It's a great book. It's a great beginner book for like cognitive biases and stuff. But it's funny because I was literally like a few hours ago, the chapter I was listening to was just about, it's kind of what you said, which is, and I think this is a Kahneman quote that he pulled this from actually, is the analogy he gave is like marketing and getting people to buy is like being in a car and either pressing the accelerator or pulling the handbrake or releasing the handbrake, right? So it's like, you can release the handbrake and the car can start moving, or you can put your foot on the accelerator, and everyone focus on the accelerator, not the handbrake. And the handbrake is pulled, right? The easier way to move is just release the handbrake and the car starts moving. So the point of this is basically like, a lot of marketers focus on, how do I change behavior? How do I kind of force something on somebody, which is really difficult. It's really difficult to change behavior and make somebody do something. It's a lot easier to reduce friction in the buying process. So what are things this person is already going to do that's already kind of in their daily routine, their behaviors? Understand like why they didn't do something, why they're not doing X, Y, and Z, and just remove those barriers, because that's the path of least resistance. They're going to go down that path if you remove those barriers. So it's perspective. And so, yeah, to your point, that's exactly right.
Were you fascinated in this when you were at Babson starting Loot, which I want to learn about? Like, were you thinking, okay, I'm going to end up a marketer? Or was it more of, I'm going to start a company and then do this and do that? Like, where does this passion come from for this?
Yeah, marketing's in. So, okay, I'll know at that time I was, so at Emory when I was there, because I went to Emory for 2 years and I transferred to Babson, and I was always interested in marketing, but more so it started for me because opportunity. And so 2007, 2008, 2009 was right when social media was really, social networking, before social media was starting to become big. And, my family background is in commercial real estate, which is a very slow moving industry. Commercial real estate brokers, those guys, the big guys, they're making, 6, 8, 10, 12 million a year, right? They don't really, they do things their way. They're like, I'm not going to do this, right? Similar to like you guys work with, car dealers, different people that's like, they've been making so much money for so long. It's like, why do I need this thing? And so I saw this as an opportunity, because I was like, they're going to move really slow. And so whoever hops on to understanding SEO and Twitter and Facebook pages and all that stuff is going to be able to be successful. So I got into it just because I saw this as like a big opportunity within that market. And that kind of led me to really immerse myself in it. But like at Babson and then with Luton, the first company, like that wasn't my priority. Like my focus was like, I just want to start a business and grow a business. I didn't really get into marketing really deeply until after that company, when I got into kind of e-commerce, and it was towards the end of that. So kind of 2012, 13 is when I started getting a little more into it.
Was there a mentor? Was there an experience?
It wasn't so much a mentor. The experience was, I saw how spent 2.5 years, my partner, Nick, and I building this company from college to eventually it failing. And And we went the venture route because that's the route that so many, if you're an entrepreneur, especially I went to school of entrepreneurship, like in certain markets, you're programmed that this is the path you take. It's kind of like the path for college. It's like you go to high school, then you go to college. It's the path. So for startups, the path for most people in the startup world is, okay, you have an idea, you then build that proof of concept, you then go pitch a bunch of people and you see if you can raise money. And then you raise more money, raise more money. And then eventually, you sell it or you go public, or at your series E or D round, you figure out how to make money, right? Like that's a lot of, up until recently, that's been the path for startups. And so it's, figure out how to make money later. Eventually make money, users make money. And like, that was just a very stressful business model. Being in a business where every day your bank account balance goes down until you raise more money and you become half the time focused on raising money, really stressful, really terrible. So at the end of that startup, I started hearing and seeing this thing called, print on demand, and Facebook ads were really just starting, right? Early 2010s. And I was like, this is amazing. It's like, I can actually sell things. I can actually make money. I can actually get a message in front of this person for really low cost. I'm going to buy something. And I can make money day one. I don't need this, raise money, and then eventually make money. And so I think that's what hooked me more so, was just the different business model, and direct response marketing was the fuel for that business model. And that then started this whole path, which eventually we started the Agent with Kevin, and then Unicorn, and where we're at today, which is a, decades long journey.
How important has study been in your rise to being a person of authority in this context? Like,
when you say study,
like, how do you learn, and what advice would you have for the listener that is, they're trying to master something? Because I'm looking to you and listening to you and following you and reading your posts and saying, this is a master at their craft, right? I want to be a master of my craft. What is, what type of behaviors?
It's a combination. So it's really, I think it's three things, right? So I think it needs to be just constantly consuming, reading. So lots and lots of books. I read a lot of books. I watch a lot of documentaries. I watch a lot of YouTube. Like anything I can get my hands on from people that are just geniuses and brilliant in the craft that I want to be, or in tertiary things, like things that that add a value, maybe not direct, but like there's something here that can be plugged in here. So that's one. Other is mentorship. I think it's really important, is surround yourself with people that are way more successful, way smarter. And that's tough. I think the reason why a lot of younger entrepreneurs they wait too long to do it and find that shortcut, it's an ego thing, right? It's like you kind of go think about like kids, right? Going through middle school and high school and even college. It's like, especially the masculine aspect of being the guy, but for women, it's the same thing. It's true. Actually, you want to be popular. You want to be the cool, you want to be the football captain. You want to be the valedictorian. You want to be the best, right? You don't want to be the loser. You don't want to be the person that everyone looks down on. So you kind of this mindset that if I'm in a room, I want to be the most popular, the most gifted, the best athlete, whatever it is, the best looking. And it's hard to break that mindset and that ego. But the reality is, like, if you are, and this is kind of played out phrase, but like, if you are the smartest, most successful person in a room, the only way you can go is down, right? You're here, everyone's down here. You're not going to learn anything that's going to move you up. You're going to be brought down. So breaking that's really tough, but it's so critical. It's like the conversations I get to have, and Rich is getting a lot of shout outs in this episode, but like, he's been so impactful in my career the last few years. The conversations that I get to have with him, we hop on a Zoom and talk for an hour and a half, like it's I can't put a value on it, right? It's so valuable because he's achieved so much. He's done so much in his career, and he's kind of done the path that I talk about, consuming. Like the dude, he would write. You have to have him on a show. I'll introduce you guys. I think you guys would hit it off from a book consumption. He was doing, now he has iPads and technology, but like the way he reads books and consumes books, does notes, is like a craft. Like he reads books, like powers through them once, then he reads them second time with highlighter. Then he goes through back just the highlighted sections, re-highlights the highlighted section, pulls out things. Then basically, back in the day, he would take those pages with like an old school big cutter, cut out those pages, have an assistant assemble them into like binders on topics. So he has like shelves and shelves and shelves. It's wild. But anyway, like, so mentorship, I think, is really, really important. And then the third, which is where I think a lot of people struggle, is a balancing act between 1 and 3. is implementation and doing. Meaning there's a lot of people out there who are just constantly consuming. They're jumping from course to course, YouTube video. And they're like, why am I not getting results? I'm buying all these courses. Well, you're just consuming. If you're not actually taking action, you're not going to get good at something. Right? Like the analogy I give is like, if I just read a bunch of books on working out, if I read every book on biomechanics and bench pressing and stuff, I'm not going to get giant pecs. Right? Like I need to go to the gym and bench. I need to do push-ups every day. If I want to actually get results, I need to do it. And vice versa. If all you're doing is just doing, but you're not learning and consuming content and knowledge, you're also going to get pretty poor results. So it's a combination of those three that I think is like really, really important to be successful.
How much do you think that psychological phenomenon has to do with people that end up just getting relegated to just teaching? Like, it's like they're the consumer and the teacher and that's it. Whereas like, I would look at someone like you actually do also implement and you're learning and teaching. I don't know. That just came to me, that thought. Like it becomes like a stuck in a binary. Like I'm consuming and then I'm sharing, but there isn't an implementation. I don't know.
I think a lot of people get stuck in that.
But that's like, is it missing? It's missing some core ingredient or something. I don't know. In your view.
Yeah. I mean, what it's missing is it's an imbalance of the three. Right. If there's not a clear balance between those three things, and I'm sure there are additional things that for everyone that's different. Maybe there's 4 or 5 things they need or 2 things they need, but like for me, those are the 3. And if those 3 out of whack, it's hard to get results because you just overweight one of those elements. And again, like you can get just too deep into just like ideas. If all you're doing is reading all the time, you're just going to get so many ideas and you're never going to implement them. Right. It's overwhelming the amount of ideas you have. And then you get this paralysis where I have too many ideas, too many things to do. And
so like if we visualize like a triangle, you're saying consume, teach and do is like, it's the pyramid. But if it's consume and teach, it's not, it's like a flat line.
Yeah. I mean, it's if you're, consuming, like, I would say like mentorship.
Trying to draw it, like there's like a pyramid.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like the pyramid is, it's
or consuming, it's like a flat line. If you're just, you're kind of just,
yeah. So any of those 3, yeah, I'd say consuming, kind of coaching, because I like a mentorship is like coaching. You want to keep the 3 C's, right? So and just make it sound nicer, consuming, coaching, and creating. Yeah, you need those 3.
I love how like you changed up and made that better for a marketable. Without
I got a lot better. It was a weakness of mine.
Right here, we just created a whole master class of how Max and
there you go
is who you are. So okay, just to unpack that.
Yeah.
Books. YouTube, mentors, of course, the implementation. I have a question on the mentor piece.
Yeah.
How would one go about developing that type of mentor-mentee relationship where, it actually is a thing in your mind?
Yeah. I mean,
like if you
I wish I had a really good tactical strategy, but what I will start with, I think is most young people assume that it's like that's why I love having conversations with you too, because like I go down tangents. I love like our flow conversation because I'll come back to this, but this is just
I follow
a path here. Like it's self-negotiation. And so what ends up happening, like an example of this is when employees go in to ask for a raise, before they go in to ask for the raise, what usually will happen is in their head, they'll say, I want to ask for $75,000 a year, but I think they're going to think that's a stretch. I'll start with 70. And so they've already lowered the price before they go in to negotiate. And so they're negotiating themselves down. I think a lot of it happens too when it comes to mentorship. So they'll be like, I would love to be able to spend time with this person, this person that got off the stage. They're like, that's where I want to be in 10 years. I want to talk. I want to know them. They're like, I have nothing to offer them. Like, why would they mentor me? Why would they speak to me? So they don't even try. They don't even spark a conversation because they assume that there's nothing they have to offer of value. What I will say is like the brilliance of what Jeremy did back with Kevin. So the whole way we built a relationship with Kevin Harrington back in the day was Jeremy had a food truck company and he was on it was a business competition in Florida and he was in it was like top 5, whatever. And Kevin was a celebrity judge. And after the thing, Jeremy went up to Kevin and sparked a conversation on his personal social media. He was like, hey, it looks like you're not doing a lot on social media. You're a massive figure on Shark Tank. You should have a much bigger presence. Like, can I help you with that? And then Jeremy and I met really shortly after, and we started helping with more stuff. And what we realized is like, yeah, Kevin, $5 billion of TV sales, as seen on TV, infomercial, Shark on Shark Tank. But guess what? He had built his career on TV. Wasn't the expert on digital, on social. We knew a lot more. And so we could offer value to him. And what happens when you offer value to individuals like this is people at that level don't get to that level by doing it all themselves. The reason they got to that level is because they identify talent, they identify people that have the it factor, and they do deals with them. They invest in them, they hire them, whatever it might be. And so for Kevin, he was like, okay, idea. I now speak in all these stages, AT&T, 3M, Sam's Club, wherever it is. And they all ask me, because I do my slide deck, this is what we need to do for marketing now. They all ask me, well, how do I do this digital stuff? And he's like, well, why don't I just start a company? I'll start an agency. And so he said, why don't we start an agency together called Quantum Media? We'll 50-50 ownership. You guys have half, we have half. You fulfill, I do deal flow. It's a great deal for Kevin because he just sends business. He's not doing the work, but he has a big chunk of it. It's a great deal for us because we were nobody, and he gave us a platform and gave us a huge step in our career. And so to your point of like, how do you go about getting people? The reality is like, simply ask, right? And try to provide value. Find something that they're missing that you're good at that you can help them with. And if you do that, they're naturally going to want to do stuff with you. At a minimum, they're going to have conversations with you and learn more about it. At a bigger level, maybe do a deal together, right? And I'm even seeing that now in my stage of my career where I'm beginning to be a mentee to some people is like, there's guys I know, like, you're so talented, right? Like we have a media buyer on our team that just is incredibly talented, incredibly motivated, has big aspirations. I'm like, I want to do a deal with him at some point. I want to figure out a way that whatever he does next, like I want to be part of it. Right. And so that's how people at that level get to that level, is by doing that. Right. And so it's the short answer is just ask, start a conversation. It sounds very basic, but a lot of people don't do it. And these people, last thing I'll say is, once those people, right, guys and girls, they get to that stage of their career, men and women get to that stage of their career, they want to give back. They want to impact the next generation of entrepreneurs. Sure, some are, jerks and they just want to retire and they don't help, but a lot of them genuinely want to help, and they want to, it's a legacy thing. It's like, if they know that, okay, I did all this stuff, but people aren't going to care when I'm gone. But if I can help these 30, 50, 100, 5,000, 10,000, 100,000 entrepreneurs do things, and I'm a part of it, it's a legacy thing. It's an impact thing. And so a lot of those individuals at that point in their career, that's what they care about. They care about legacy. They care about impact. They care about giving back. And so it's a great time to be in that orbit for those individuals.
You just made me realize something. It's like, I want to ask you about, partnership, and because what you said about Jeremy, like, we're here really because of him. I mean, when I was at that event and I saw you speak, I was like, it's not like I went up to you and was like, Max, my name is Jay. Nice to meet you. You're very impressive. My fiance, or my girlfriend at the time, thinks you're the rock star. It was like Jeremy came up to me, and then it was like, whatever the hell he said, the rest is history. And like, now I think about it, it's like, here we are on this podcast. And literally I'm going to spend 5-6 hours tomorrow with somebody that came from, I met Mike Calhoun through him too.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, I just felt like he really is a special guy. So in the spirit of that, right, partnership, how did that come together? And what's your advice to people on like how to develop a meaningful partnership with somebody? Because you guys, it's impressive to see what you created,
Yeah. I mean, it's frankly, I don't know how individual solo entrepreneurs do it. They make a lot more money, right? That's the one thing. It's like, obviously, I think that's the mindset, is like, partner. If I have partners, I got to split money, and it's resource, and it's this mindset of like scarcity versus abundance. And sure, maybe in the long run, maybe or at least the short run, you make some more money, but like, I don't think we could have done what we've done career-wise and where we're at today as professionals and where we're at in the business world and the marketing world without with us being partners, but also just partnerships we've done with other people and other companies. And I mean, it really comes down to just bandwidth, right? Like if you're the owner of the business and you're by yourself, you're doing everything, especially early on. Eventually you can start hiring, you can hire a CMO and a COO and all these individuals. But like in the first, few $1 million of business, right? You're wearing every hat.
Mm.
And it's very, very difficult. It's hard enough to do what we've done with divided roles, but doing him as a single person is nearly impossible. And it's also just hard to become really great at lots of things. And I think that's what's helped Jeremy and I both grow as fast as we have. It's that because we divided and conquered in our businesses, we were able to really focus on our zones of genius. I didn't have to spend time learning how to do sales and biz dev and all the things that Jeremy's great at. And Jeremy didn't have to learn how to run ads and marketing. Sure, we've picked up things along the years because we talk to each other every day and stuff, but like we can really focus in on our thing and become the best at that thing and continue to grow at that thing. And that's been huge. Yeah, I mean,
How'd you guys meet?
It's funny. I was running a e-commerce store called Startup Drugs, which is the little e-commerce store we sold to Russell.
Yeah,
And
which I want to learn about that. That's
yeah,
fascinating.
we can talk about that. And so was running it. I was in Orlando, Jeremy was in Orlando, and Jeremy saw one of our ads and commented on it. And I responded back, and we both kind of realized we're both in Orlando, and there's not a massive entrepreneur scene in Orlando, right? It's not New York or San Francisco or Boston or Austin. And so same age, younger entrepreneurs, up and coming, both in kind of this industry, this marketing world. And so it just, spurred a conversation from there, met up, hung out a few times. That's when, he shared what he was doing with Kevin and his son, Brian, and kind of invited me to go to a meeting with them. And we just hit it off, all of us together. And it just it just worked. It just fit. It was right. It's like he had his area over here. I had my area over here. That's what was both needed to do this deal and really grow it. So it just worked out really well in terms of like where our passions were, our zones of genius were, what our goals were, where we're at in our careers, everything kind of aligned there.
Do you think that's a key component for a partnership? And like, I'm curious what your advice would be for how to, what to avoid, because there's every day I do see, in corporate environments, partnerships not.
Yeah. And we've had plenty of
thing.
bad ones. We've bought out. I mean, with Quantum, there were 6 partners to start. We had a third partner on our side, and then they had a third partner on their side, their lawyer. We had initially Unicorn, there was 4 of us. So we've bought out, multiple partners over the years. We had initial investors in Unicorn in the buying out. I think you can't have too many. I think it's great to have a partnership and multiple people working a uniform goal, right? But you have too many people, right? Everyone has different places they want to go, different goals, different aspirations, different ideas. And
Like
there's not a clear decision maker.
Democracy versus constitutional republic or something. What I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe that's
When you're running a business, it is, sometimes a lot of times you kind of need somebody to be like, this is what we're doing and we're doing it. It's great to have ideas, but at the end of the day, like you need to be able to make decisions and move forward. You can't debate over everything. You'll die, right? You move too slow if you're debating every decision. And so I think the reason Jeremy and I work so well, and the reason I think like 2 is a good number, 3 can kind of work. Once you get beyond 3, it's really hard. Is because we kind of just know, like, pick our fights. And so there's certain times we'll be discussing something like he doesn't really agree with me. I don't really agree with him on something, but it's like, we're going to go with this. It's like, we both disagree, but like, this is kind of you're kind of more responsible for this part of the business. So we're going to go with you. And if it doesn't work, well, I told you so. Right. So it's like, we have a good rapport on that. Every now and then we'll like really, if I'm really adamant about something, he's really adamant about something, we'll like spend a good amount of time on it, but that's very, very rare. When you get multiple partners, the most basic mundane stuff can lead to that level of discussion, and that's draining. It's stressful. It distracts you. It's a waste of resources and time and bandwidth and energy. So yeah, I think beyond 2, again, I think, like I said, 3, but if you do 3,
what makes you feel 3? Yeah. What's the youth?
So three works if there's really somebody like, so for example, Unicorn Traffic or agency, we have three partners, Jeremy, myself, and Will is our third partner. But Will owns a majority of the company. Will's the CEO. He's the guy for that agency, right? So in that setting, it works. I don't think it would work if all three of us had the same level of ownership and the same level of day-to-day in it. So I think if you're going to do multiple partners beyond two, one of those individuals, if you talk to a guy like Grant will actually say, because he did this little event before TNC a year ago and was sharing kind of all of his playbook and stuff, because he does a lot of he has under 10x umbrella, a lot of different companies, and all of them have like an operator, a partner basically in it that runs it. And basically in all those deals, he's like, I don't care if it's me, I don't care if it's you, but one of us needs to have a majority. So he's not a proponent even on two people of having 50-50, because he's like, it's either I need to make a decision, you make the decision. And there's not a debate over it. But I think, yeah, with three, it's like if one person has the majority, it makes it easy. It's like, okay, you're really running the show. We'll push back on something sometimes, but really it's your show, you're running it. You make the big decisions. If you disagree with us, if we really are about it, we'll bring it to a vote maybe, but like for the most part, we'll just trust your decision. But three equal partners, I think, is a disaster. Four equal partners is a disaster. Anything beyond that, two, again, for a lot of people could end up being a disaster, but for us, it's worked out over the last, 8 years or so.
How did, going to history for a bit here, how did your family start in commercial real estate?
My grandpa, he was a developer. So he developed a lot of the kind of townhomes, multifamily, single family residential units in Western, Northern Jersey, Eastern Pennsylvania, came up with the concept of, was one of the earlier, it's hard to say, like somebody maybe in California came up with the two at the same time, but like was one of the very, very early proponents and ideas behind like the planned community. This idea essentially of people like this taken for granted now, but like it wasn't always the case that you build neighborhoods around like schools and supermarket. Everything's kind of built around a community. So developed that, and it was very successful, and sold that business, probably could have retired, but started a new concept, new model for commercial real estate, where for residential, it was pretty common. You have basically franchise models where there's a kind of a corporate brand, and then there's, local offices that are independent that kind of pay into the parent REMAX, call bank, or whatever it is. They pay a licensing fee plus a percent of sales based on the market size, and they get to use the brand, the marketing, the technology. So we did the same thing for commercial. Initially, it's called New American Network, and that eventually grew. My dad took it over, brought it international. Eventually, it's called NAI Global, which is still one of the largest commercial real estate companies in the world. We sold it in 2012, but had offices in 55 countries. It was, massive, thousands of brokers, hundreds of offices, and was a franchise model. So everything was independently owned, but everyone paid to basically use the NAI name. So it's, here in Orlando, it's, I think, NAI Realvest. So that's the name of the Orlando office. And there's different ones in all the different cities across the country, across the world. And it's an interesting model. It's an interesting market. And it was interesting seeing the growth, the trajectory from, I remember being a kid, and the original office, the headquarters, was in this little kind of almost looked like a shack, this wooden building behind a Nissan dealership that my grandpa worked at a deal with the guy down at the Nissan dealership to give him a free Nissan Z, which that was the coolest car in the world. My grandpa had it for letting the guy use our parking lot as an overflow lot. To then eventually having this, big corporate office in Princeton, New Jersey, beautiful, to lifestyle change, to then 2008, 2009, almost losing everything that that spent decades building almost in a year, coming on the verge of collapse. And so it's really interesting perspective, seeing that roller coaster of up and downs.
How old were you then in 2008?
So 2008, I would have been 18, 19.
What were you thinking then about that whole deal?
It was stress. I mean, it was definitely, obviously my parents are good at keeping they're not going to just spill the beans and everything. Like, this is where we're at and stuff. But it's like, you could tell, like, I knew I was old enough to know what was happening in the economy. I knew that it was impacting the real estate market most significantly. I knew something was up, having like my mom went back to work and was working in the office. So I knew, like, it's like things are not great, right? If my, mom's now going back to work a 9 to 5, and, and just seeing pay cuts, just changes and shifts to like how we're doing things. Never knew the severity of it until probably years later, like talking to my dad and everything there. But yeah, it was definitely a challenging few years. I was also I just started college too, so I wasn't at home. I wasn't like seeing the day-to-day stress. I'm sure if I was there, I would have probably seen it differently, because I would have seen my dad and mom coming home every night and just that. So I was, kind of phone calls and stuff like that. But really, most of the time I was just freshman, sophomore in college. So I was kind of disconnected to a degree.
When you were little, did you ever aspire to run the business? Because families transition things sometimes. Sometimes they do what your family did, where they exit. Did you have any of these aspirations at one time?
Yeah, it definitely was something that once I was probably like 18, 19, maybe even 17, started thinking about it, because I obviously by then knew, like, my grandpa started it and my dad was running it. And out of my cousins, people in the family, like I was the entrepreneur that, like, and none of my other cousins were like, that was their passion or their expertise or things like that. So if I was going to say in the family, it probably would have been me. But then I also, like, I just wasn't passionate. I saw the impact on my dad, where it was like an interesting thing, because my dad did very well and has continued to do very well and started other businesses since then. Obviously, very, very grateful. And I'm sure he's very grateful for all the success he's had. But at the same time, I could see that he was could be frustrated, because he had built this massive thing, this massive company. But there were individual like brokers at like the Atlanta office, New York office, that were probably clearing, 10 million a year. Right. So like some of the big brokers in some of the markets, they sell $100 million office building. So they were all leveraging the technology and the brand name, and they pay licensing fees and stuff for that. But like my dad was like, I think he was like, if I just, did that, like if I just went and just if I just bought and sold real estate and invested in real estate, could have made more money potentially. But I was saying, I think it had much more impact legacy wise, like what he built. But at the same time, so I started seeing that, I was like, the income potential here, obviously they sold the company. My dad did well selling it, but it's like I want to do something really big, and I want to do something on my own. And I want to, because there's no path for me, right? It's like my dad didn't, like, my grandpa started it, but my dad took it from, maybe 20, 50 office, whatever it was, just in the United States. And he brought it everywhere. He brought it to Asia, South America, Middle East, Europe, right? Like we had offices in every country and every continent. So for me, and then he also brought the technology and the internet, all this stuff to it. And so for me, I was looking at it, like, well, like there's nothing else
where are you going?
do. So then I would look at it as just like, I'm just taking it over. And it's like, it's a, like he's just a kid. He's running it because he's a kid. So it's like, to me, I never saw it. It's like, there's more downside than upside for me if I run this. Right. Just from like a public optics standpoint.
Well, Max, I just want to like make sure I interrupt this, like, to give you some acknowledgments here. I mean, I don't know if I've ever watched any of those movies where the third gen says what you just said, meaning like it really is a testament to your character on some level. I think, like, I don't know.
I appreciate that. I mean, I'd like to think that I was thinking as a 17-year-old.
That's a very
lot of character, but
thought, though. What I just heard, like,
but it's true,
though. Really
wanted
to create something.
It's true. I think I think everyone if you come from a family business success, I think the generations that go further down, each generation that's subsequent kind of knows it, but it's also like, I know it, but this is kind of a much easier path. Like I can go down this path and I know I have a path to making $1 million a year, $2 million a year, whatever it is. And it's a lot less work. And it's like, so it's, you're weighing those things. I think.
Were you worried that it could be a shackle?
Yeah, it would be a shackle. I think it'd be a shackle. It would be pressure, a lot of pressure, because it's what if I fuck it up, right? Like what if like again, going back to like upside downside, it's like it's already global, it's international. Where do I go? Add just more countries, more geo, like, okay, add more services or go acquire businesses, expand like, okay, that's interesting. But it just I'm like, I just also wasn't passionate in it. Like there was nothing that was like, it's a boring market, right? No offense to people that are in the market. It's just like, it's boring. Finance, real, it's like, it's, you're not creating anything. Obviously you're providing liquidity. Like there's value to our financial institutions and markets. It's integral, but it's also like, you're not building anything that's really changing the world, that's impacting anything. And now somebody might say, well, like, you're a marketer, just run ads. Like, what are you doing? But the way I look at it is like, but I've gotten to work with so many businesses that have products that actually have like that make an impact, make a difference. And so, yeah, I just never got excited about it. It
It
just the
wasn't
risk
your
reward.
symphony, I guess.
Yeah, it wasn't for me. And
Hey,
yeah, I think once my dad started kind of understanding that, that's why I think they explored. I mean, again, I don't know, maybe they would have sold the business. If it wasn't the case, it just would happen anyway, but it definitely made it easier for my dad to say, like, let's sell the business. Once it was like, there's no Finns that are going to take over the business after me.
what would you say to someone listening in that position now that has to make that choice? Because they're listening.
Of somebody that has a family business about taking
Yeah,
over the family
third
business,
generation, or it
I
could
think
be
it's,
second or fourth, I
yeah,
guess. But
I think it's a very, it's a very personal decision. I think it becomes even harder when, like, let's say you're talking about a car dealership where your family name is on the dealer, like that becomes a whole nother level, because now there's like legacy, there's all this other stuff, all this other baggage that comes with it. I would just say the I'm a numbers guy. The data is not good around generational wealth. The stats are not good. If you look at the Vanderbilts, if you look at any of these dynasties, it's usually the money's gone in 3-4 generations. I think the Medici's lasted 7 or 8 generations, but Rockefellers, Vanderbilt, it's gone, because each generation kind of just is a little less effective and then spends a little more and doesn't invest it as well. Like it just gets worse and worse. And so I think if you look at it through that lens, it's like, if I just keep going on this path of just taking over the family business and running it that way, it's like chances are probably pretty high that I ruin it or that I'm the last one. And like,
mm,
do you want to be the family member that like lost the family fortune? I mean, I'm assuming family fortune. Like for us, it wasn't a family fortune. It was just like family business, and it did pretty good, but it wasn't like a fortune. Like there's not like millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars to like
yeah,
blow, right?
the
But
shake
like
of
the
Dubai over
figurative,
here.
yeah, the figurative family fortune. Um, and so I think it's like, if you're doing it out of comfort, if you're doing it because it's the easy route, I just think that's a mistake. I think the chances are that you fail. It's pretty high that you fail. And like, personally,
Wow.
I just wouldn't want that to be my like that's a horrible legacy. I would rather be the person in the family that said, I'm going to do something on my own. I'm not going to take the easy route. I'm going to go, and again, easy in the figure, and it's running a business still hard, but just, I'm going to go branch on my own. I'm not going to take the job. I'm going to go figure out what I want to do and build something. And if I fail, I fail, but at least I failed doing something totally novel. I did it on my own. I worked really hard to make it happen. Than like being handed the keys and burning the building down. Like, I just wouldn't want to be that person. I think it's with a
Do,
lot of undue pressure on you.
do you think there's values, even unspoken, that you've been able to bring into your endeavors today that came through the family culture that you?
Yeah. And I think that the way I view it, because I think some people might say that are watching this maybe and have a family business, multiple generations, that if I don't do it, then it's a disrespect, it's a slight, it's not honoring the tradition. And what I would say, again, I can't know what your grandparents or your great grandparents or your parents think, but I would argue that like it would be more impactful if that grandparent, great parent were looking down and knew that not only were they able to build this family business, but then they were able to build a family of entrepreneurs who went out and built other empires of their own. To me, that's way more impactful. It's like knowing that the grandkids didn't just take over this business, keep growing it a little bit, but like they all went out and they built this company. Now their kids are running, and like, and it creates a spider web of businesses. Cause that's 100%. Like I wouldn't be where I am today without my grandpa and without my dad. And I mean, obviously that my mom and grandpa, all the other people, but like from business sense, like without the lessons they taught me and the experience I got from being around them, the conversations I had with them, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. There's no scenario where I would be. And so they have a huge hand in what I've built and what I'm going to build, because I'm going to build massive things. Like when I'm in my 60s, 70s, like what I'll accomplish can be massive. I'm thinking a lot bigger as I get older. And so like, I want to build something that's 100 times bigger than what my dad built.
Wow.
And 1,000 times bigger than my grandpa built. And I don't say that in a disrespectful way. I say that like an honoring, like, because that's them, like that's their legacy. They're just as responsible for it as I am. And so, yeah, I think that the family tree would be, in the grand scheme of things, prouder, and it'd be more of an honor to them if the future generations went out and actually did other things and accomplish other great things, even if it's not business. It just go accomplish something impactful in any form of life. It doesn't have to be building a business. It can be, you become, a great artist, you become a great athlete, whatever it is, but like do it at the highest level and give it 110% and put everything into it. And I think that's doing just as much to honor and respect their legacy than taking over the family business.
Are they tuned into all this kind of stuff?
My dad definitely is. Grandparents have passed, but like my grandpa was like up until he passed, but he passed right after I got married, right before I got married. And so it was, saw kind of first wave, didn't get to see, he saw a lot of the challenges. He saw, glimmers of success, but like, it's really wasn't until the last few years that I've achieved, a good deal of success in relative to what I did earlier. But yeah, you definitely.
You think he knew you were going places, though?
Yeah, I think 110%. There was without a shadow of a doubt, he knew
That's
that.
cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is next for you? What where is Max Finn going? What is he building? And the add to that is like, we have like the inside to your brain right here, right? What do we need to be thinking about as it relates to marketing and building business in 2024 and 2025? I mean, you're one to ask. So first he's like, yeah, what are you building? Where are you going? And then how can we tap into some of that and, make some moves here? I see that camera. I want to ask you about that. I need one looking at me. I want to ask you about that. But yeah,
this is we could spend a whole day talking about the plans, because they have a lot of them, but
whatever you're capable, able to speak.
No, I get it. So it's like, in a grand scheme, at a big picture, it's building and acquiring and investing in brands that we can scale, building a large portfolio of businesses. I think it's similar to like, you're seeing a lot of big names doing similar things. So you look at like what Hormozy is doing with acquisition.com, and it's like, that's the path. Like I look at like all the most successful people throughout really history. Once you build some level of influence, authority, and capital, then it's leveraging that as those three things as tools to expand and amplify. Meaning like, you can only do so much if you're the operator building, growing a business. You kind of do one thing at a time. You're building one business. You got to hope a lot of things go right. Whereas if you look at it like Buffett does, which is like, I'm going to identify amazing, there you go. And his mentor, Benjamin Graham, like, obviously had a different, Graham had a different view. He was looking at kind of cigar butt type investments and, looking at companies that were undervalued based on what they're worth, and different model. And that's what Buffett did early on. But like Buffett today is like looking at great companies that are undervalued, that he can take big stakes in and leverage his resources, his vast connections and influence to help grow those companies. And so looking at like a tiny scale of that to start, but just, there's a lot of great businesses out there that have great products, great operators, but really don't have any experience and knowledge how to grow. How do I scale this business? How do I market and promote this business? And that's something, Jeremy and I spent last decade is building expertise, obviously in the scaling aspect of the advertising, but also just building a massive network of connections, resources, everything you would need to, you look at, you talk to Christopher, last week with what he's done with Hero, like, that company might do 20 million this year. Like it's on fire.
From
And
nothing.
like, yeah, from nothing a few years ago. And so but just the connections we built with that, the financing, there's so many aspects, supply chain that go into it that most people that are just getting started have a 2 million, a $5 million a year business don't have in place. And so we want to look at, like, we actually just bought the domain unicornbrands.com,
Oh,
which
nice.
was finally was available as a premium. It was like, not cheap, but like we bought it because it's like, that's what we want to build, this portfolio. We start buying companies, investing in companies, taking big stakes in companies, and really helping them scale it up and building a large portfolio of very profitable, rapid growth businesses. That's really, when it comes to, two things, when it comes to like impact and wealth building, it's really one of the only ways you can do it. It's very hard to do it with one company. It's very hard to do it with a salary, with income. You need to build companies, you need to build assets, you need to invest in assets companies and exit those companies and assets. And so it's, yeah, again, like a lot of the mentors I look at, a lot of people I know that are being very successful, like that's the game they play. And it's a lot of it's math too. Like a guy he's a friend and somebody I treat as a mentor, a guy, Tom Shipley, who's just brilliant. We were at his event. He had a little mastermind a few weeks ago, and he's building a model, basically acquiring agencies, consolidating those agencies under a single umbrella, and then doing them in kind of certain buckets, agencies that specialize in this market, this market, this market, and then eventually either the whole company selling to PE or going public, selling some of the individuals, some of the companies. But it's really a numbers game. And this is what a lot of people, like, I didn't know this when I got into the space, and a lot of people don't understand this till you get to this space. It's like companies are bought and sold on multiples, right? Meaning I'm willing to pay, and this is like the stock market, right? A PE multiple, price to earnings multiple, is how much you're willing. That's what reason why, like, a share price is way more than what the company's earning today, is because you're saying I'm buying the future of this company, what they're going to make down the road. Apple, $3 trillion company. They got wiped out. They got, $200 billion hit last week, but still so massively profitable. People are willing to pay a lot of money to own a share of Apple because they think that in the future, they're going to be making a lot more money. And so same way with any company, a small company, it's somebody's going to come in and say, you make $1 million a year, EBITDA. I'm going to pay you 2x multiple on EBITDA. So I'll pay you $2 million for the company. That's how much your company's worth. So what a lot of these individuals are doing, and it's very, very smart, it's actually relatively easy, is, okay, if I find 4 or 5 companies that are in a similar space and they're all $1 million a year businesses, and the multiple on that is 2 or 3x, I can buy all of them. So let's say I buy 5 companies, $1 million EBITDA for 2x multiple. Okay. So I'm paying $10 million for the 5 companies. Just the fact that now those 5 companies are under the same company, now it's a $5 million a year EBITDA business. And guess what? Because it's a $5 million EBITDA business, it's less risky, less volatile, the multiple is higher. So the multiple in it might be 6 now, which means now the company is worth $30 million. So I bought 5 companies for $10 million, and now the company is worth $30 million. Now, again, doesn't mean they're going to sell it right away, but that's just based on just math. And that's why a lot of these guys are looking at deals. It's like, I'm going to go find these smaller companies. I'm going to roll them up into one company. I'm going to bring a lot of efficiencies in because they all don't need accounting. They all don't need this. I can have one accounting firm, one marketing agency. So I can get rid of cost. I can increase profitability. I can bring my relationships, my expertise in, help them scale. And then we can sell it for a lot more money in a few years. So for me, it's like, I've just got a lot more interested in like thinking a lot bigger, like not just saying, let's build like one little company. Let's build a $2 million a year education business, or this, $2 million, this business, $5 million business. Let's build like a $1 billion portfolio. Let's build $100 million portfolio.
Well, I've been reading this week the 100-year, it's like a acknowledgement, Pierre Dupont, who was a 5th gen DuPont, when they were done.
Yeah.
It was over. He got together with his cousin Coleman, who was like the biz dev guy, and his other cousin Henry, I think, who was like the engineering genius. And Samuel's genius was basically M&A. It was like the early 1905 or something like that. And they rolled up of all of the gunpowder companies, like had to be like 60% in a very short period of years, got all of them. And they ended up making 4 billion equivalent in World War One.
Yep.
Like providing all the gunpowder for the US.
Yep.
And that just came to my mind.
A lot of them, you look at the
it was a roll up 100 years.
You look at Anheuser-Busch, you look at Rockefeller, you look at any of these companies as they were getting started, they vertically integrated. They acquired, the Bush family, a lot of the beer companies up into Prohibition, they acquired the entire supply chain from the actual farms all the way down to the bars, and including distributors. And eventually after Prohibition, they got broken up. Congress enacted legislation that it's basically, they need to put a separation. That's why like Coca-Cola, that's why they have independent bottlers and stuff. The bottlers are their own companies. So for the beverage companies, the beer companies, they do put separation there for like basically competitive and anti-monopoly practices. But yeah, Rockefeller, same thing. It's okay. I need to transport all my oil. So I'm going to buy a railroad, and then I'm going to buy this, and I'm going to buy this, and I'm going to buy that. And it's like now, because I own the entire supply chain, my costs go down. I have more control, I can compete with more people. It's a time old practice that all the most successful people in history have all at some level done this. And I don't think it's a coincidence.
When it comes to, I see you everywhere, right? Now I'm watching you teach. Did that like content? Does that have anything to do with that camera looking at you right now?
This one that I'm
the
talking
cell
about?
phone.
Oh, this right here. This is a mic.
Yeah. Oh, that's the mic. I thought that was a cell phone this whole time.
It does. I will be fair, from this angle and the way the camera looks, it does look like this could be.
Yeah, it looks like the cell phone is looking at your face. I'm thinking, are you recording content for distribution?
It would be good. Although it'd be a terrible angle. It'd be like an up, it'd make the worst angle ever.
Yeah, higher than now. But so, well, in the stream of consciousness of that inquiry there, what's your take on the vitality and value of what I'm watching when I see you, articulating various ideas online, whether that be TikTok, whether it be Instagram? Like, what's the motivation, and how do you see that distribution channel evolving? Because that's over recent. This year, I started seeing you. Maybe I wasn't seeing you before that. In that way.
This year, I would say even like the last few months, we have a full-time person now, Aspen, on our team, that's been doing an amazing job. That's leveled up. We're posting 3 times a day. We'll probably increase that to 4 or 5 times a day. And it's something that I've thought, and I've actually, you got to change your views and evolve as you get older, and admit you were wrong about certain things. I think one of the things I was wrong about was, for a few years, especially when I got into the education market, I was a believer that like it's quality over quantity, that I didn't have to be posting multiple times a day or every day, that it was just about the quality of the videos. That's all that matters. And I think that is accurate to a degree. It's people, I attracted a certain group of people because I really focus on high level content, and those people bought a lot of my stuff, but it was very small in scale. And the data is just undeniable. You look at, Grant Cardone, again, we'll keep going to Grant here. You look at Gary Vaynerchuk. You look at Alex Hormozi. You look at these individuals. They're all doing the same thing. They're all they're everywhere, right? You can't go on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or anywhere without seeing videos of them. Patrick Bet-David, he's blown up, right? It's like these guys there's so much content. It's everywhere. And even look now in the presidential, like what's happening in the presidential race. You look at Vivek, who's kind of really tearing it up in the polls, right? And he's everywhere. He's on every podcast, on every show, because he understands if people are seeing me everywhere, there's this perception that there's a reason why I'm everywhere. I'm popular, right? Pay attention to you. They see everywhere, right? It's hard to ignore you. And so I finally said, like, there's just so much evidence to support that Doesn't mean you have shit you can't just have crap content or bad content, but quantity is definitely more important and has more weight than I initially gave it credit for. And when we were with Grant last year, and he was showing some charts and some graphs of like his company's value and his revenue, and also his following and his audience size. And it was literally, the lines were perfectly on top of each other in terms of his growth in net worth, his growth in income, and his growth online following were almost 1-to-1. So as his following went up, his amount of money he made went up. And so when you talk to like Hermosi, the reason he started putting out more content is because he paid Grant like $100,000 so for a phone call. And on the call, Grant said, well, like, how much content are you putting out every day? He said, 1 video, 2 videos. Like, you need 5, 10 videos. And that's what he's doing. He's putting out a lot more content. And I don't think it's a coincidence that now he's like a celebrity, right? He can't go anywhere without getting mobbed by people. So yeah, for me, I had to start doing, I think, for business. And I think it's also important because being overly dependent on ads is a challenge. And I think part of me was because I'm an ads person, I relied heavily on ads. I'm not an organic person, so I never really put a lot of weight into that. But having diversified sales channels where you're getting sales every day from organic, from social media, changes the game completely. And we started seeing it. As soon as I started putting out content a lot more, guess what? We're getting more sales every day, every week because of social.
Wine song.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
If I have the ego to think I'm in control, which is a part of the paradox of being a person, and I'm scrolling of my own volition, what I didn't choose is that I see you every 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And well, I bought Italian wine. I don't know why I did it. Well, because the song is Italian. I don't know that. Yeah. What do you think of that thought? I think that's part of the psychological, undercurrent there.
Yeah, I mean, it's
the organic with
awareness. Awareness is an integral part of a buying decision, right? That's why people always wonder, like, why does Coca-Cola still spend pretty much more money advertising every year than anybody else on the planet? Coke is, I think it's number 1 or number 2 of the most known words on the planet. Right? If you like go around the world, the entire world, like percent of people that know that word, it's I think number 1, number 2, what Coke is. And but yet they still spend so much money advertising. People are like, well, everyone knows you already. Why would you advertise? The reason everyone knows them is because they keep advertising, right? It's like they're everywhere, omnipresent, constant saturation around the world. Coca-Cola branding to the point where if you just see even something that resembles a red cup with white letters, people just instantly, their brain even sees Coke. Like, it's so deeply ingrained in people's brains, and people buy things that are familiar, that they've seen a lot. So it's a really important part of marketing.
Have you ever gone through Charlie Munger's Almanac?
I haven't gone through, no.
I really think you'd enjoy that book. In the topic of books, though, what are some that have, because you're a reader, and we have a lot of readers that listen. What are some that have struck you? Outside of Thinking Fast and Slow, which I want to, or did I just say that wrong? Thinking
Fast and Slow is it, Kahneman?
Yeah, which I have an admission to make, is that I've not yet finished it, and I haven't. These things end up laying all over the house, and you ever do this where you put a book where you think you're higher likelihood of reading it, and then you end up just not reading it because that's like, anyway, I haven't finished the book, and like, this is a good talk of what do you call it, like, Jay, you got to finish that book. But what books would you recommend for the fellow nerds out there?
Predictably Irrational is a great book. Misbehaving is a great book. This is a great, so this right here is when let's see. So this is Rory Sutherland's Alchemy. This is one of my favorite books of all time. I love anything Rory Sutherland puts out, writes, talks about. I'm a huge fan of Ogilvy. Alchemy.
Ogilvy?
Yeah, he's the vice chair.
Yeah. Oh wait, what did you say?
He's the vice chairman at Ogilvy.
Is he still alive?
Rory Sutherland.
Yep. Oh, you're saying Rory took over because Ogilvy's no longer with us.
Ogilvy's Rory Sutherland. Yeah,
that's what I thought.
Yep. So yeah, Alchemy is great. I mean, again, I think it's like anything you look at, like Richard Thaler, Rory Sutherland, Daniel Kahneman, any of those guys that are putting out there is really great. I have like a full, like, there's more stuff too. If I pull
Do
like
you
my,
do audio too?
I do Audible a lot. There'll be like physical copies of, so like Ray Dalio's books. I just like they're just like great looking books too. So like, and I love,
Have you
um,
have you went through the new one? I
yeah, I was
think
actually going to
what is
recommend
it?
that. So
Oh, you
Changing
are.
New World Order. It's actually back. It's right there next to Breakthrough Advertising. So yeah, that's a great book, totally relevant to marketing. But if you just want to understand the rise and fall of empires, kind of where we're at, it's a great book.
Did you read Principles?
Yep.
So what's your take on that? And because it's a cultural book too. I'm curious what you derive from it, and if you have takes on culture generally, like where you think it's kind of overspoken and under like, I guess, irrational and kind of not understood, not useful, and where you think it is.
In terms of just like impact on like focusing on culture within companies
Well,
and
because
everything.
firstly, Principles, right? It's a book
Yeah.
about his culture, the Bridgewater,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's a lot more than that even. So I'm curious about what your thoughts on the book, and then also generally like how you view, culture, and where you think it's misunderstood, and what you derive from it. Because
I mean, yeah.
you grew up in a successful culture, clearly.
Yeah. I mean,
Visionary, action, all that kind of stuff.
I think whether you agree or disagree with kind of every point in there, right? Like, I think it's what's undeniable is the fact that what Ray Dalio has built is incredibly impressive and incredibly effective, right? Just the kind of empire that he's built, the level of success that he's built, the level of kind of high performers and culture of high performers that he's developed there. And just like uh, the innovation around like concepts of like fundamental theories of investing decisions, and the technology behind it and the mindset behind it, like just a real innovator. In terms of like more macro level, what I think of culture in companies, I do think it's really important. I think it has changed. I used to think it really didn't matter. I was really, especially because it's most of my adult life in the professional world has happened in a more remote work environment. Even before COVID, it was, we're running tech companies, market. It's like, you don't really need a physical office. And so
Mhm.
most of the businesses outside of Quantum, once we left Quantum, we had remote work. And so culture was like, well, that's the thing you have when you have a company in an office and all that stuff. It's the Google and Facebook and stuff. Um, I think it's really important. I think it's become more important to me having uh employees that like genuinely like what they do. They genuinely believe in what they do. There's a unified vision. There's a level of excitement around the goal. Everyone's aligned around goals. People have goals. Um, there's camaraderie. There's connection between people, even if it's remote. We do a lot of things on Slack, on weekly team calls. We do, whether it's just different activities, whether it's games. Every day on Slack, we have a prompt for all of our teams and the channels. Even something as simple as like, something you're grateful for personally, professionally, 2 things, share in Slack, like just engagements and touch points there. We can get to know people, what's something you appreciate in yourself, what's something you appreciate on somebody in the team, like little shout outs. I think that's really important. I think it's also really important to have people who align with the principles and the work ethic and the goals uh, of other employees on the company and like what the company is doing. Because you have a few people in there that just like aren't operating at the same level, that don't think the same way, that aren't aligned on that vision, and it throws everything off. And so I noticed is like all of our companies now, like we've done a pretty good job of that, of like building amazing teams where like everybody's just perfect for the role. Now, can everyone improve? Of course, everyone can improve, but it's like the drive, the work ethic, the determination, the excitement of what they're building, what they're doing, the enjoyment, the fulfillment. Like we regularly tell people on our team, like even like, giving another shout out to, Aspen and our team, but also like, Zach and Lucas and all the people on our core unicorn innovations team, like they all know that they don't own the business. They don't have to be responding on weekends or after hours in Slack, but like I'll drop a message in Slack. I did like last night, I put something in there. I tagged the person and I was like, hey, just, when you get to this, like it needs to change. And like within 5 minutes, I got a response. And I was like, I remind people, I was like, don't worry about it. It's a weekend, but it's like, that's the type of person. Again, we're not expecting it. You can't expect it, right? There's just laws and stuff, but it's like, that's the person I want, not because I expect people to work 24/7. That's not it. But I want the person that loves what they're doing so much that they want to do that. Not that they have to do it, not that it's an expectation, but it's like somebody that doesn't like their job or just views it as a job and like, this is just a paycheck, isn't going to do that. Somebody that's like genuinely like, this is exciting, what I'm doing, what we're building, I'm all in. They're going to be thinking about it after work. They're going to be tuned into Slack, right? Because if that person didn't, their phone, the app would be closed. They wouldn't even got the notification, right? But there's something about them where like they keep the app open. They're checking it every now and then. And that's the type of person for like what we're building that we want. So yeah, I think culture is a huge part of building a successful company.
Max, in closing, we've gone around the mountain. What there's a lot of it's an interesting time, to say the least, at every level, economically, culturally, in the spirit of all that and the spirit of the conversation. What do you want the audience to take away tomorrow as they venture in to create the success that, hopefully they're inspired to create, having listened to this?
What's the big takeaway for today? I would say something I wish I knew and respected and lived sooner was enjoying the journey over the destination, and building a journey and creating and focusing on the journey instead of just the destination. Meaning, a lot of entrepreneurs are so focused on the thing, the tangible outcome, whether it's a car or a house or that, exit or that retirement or whatever it is, that they put their head down and they just do, and they don't appreciate the wins along the way. They don't savor the victories along the way. They don't enjoy life along the way. They don't build a path that they can actually enjoy being on along the way. And like, that's not, to me, it's almost no different than 9 to 5. Like, the reason why you got in the 9 to 5 is not just to eventually make a lot of money. It's so that you can have freedom and flexibility and actually enjoy your life and to be doing fun things, exciting things along the way. And I think a lot of people forget that in our space. And so like the challenge I give to a lot of people is like, every now and then, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's a year, like sit down and not just goal plan for the future, but like reflect back on goals you've achieved. A lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people are really bad about doing that. Right. And we're hardwired that way. The way dopamine works, the way our brain works, it's not to be complacent. We're only, chemically rewarded as we're achieving things on the path. It's the path that gets us the dopamine hits. Like, that's why, like, if you're a drug addict, you actually get the biggest rush of dopamine and neurochemicals, right? Like right before you do the drug, not when you're doing it. It's the anticipation leading up to it, because that's the way our brain works. It's trying to get you to do that thing. Once you do the thing, it's no longer exciting, right? And so once we accomplish something, we move on to the next thing. And we never reflect back on like, well, look at all the stuff we've accomplished the last year, the last 3 years, the last 5 years. So it's for me, it's like really keep pushing yourself. You don't want to be complacent. You don't want to stop. But at the same time, also recognize that like, you're never going to be content. There's never going to be the day where you hit it and you're like, good. Right. And so once you realize that, it's like, okay, well, I need to like enjoy what I'm doing now and appreciate what I have right now and appreciate what I've achieved right now and stay motivated. But it's got to be a balancing act. And it's a hard thing to do for a lot of type A entrepreneurs.